It's been a very busy yet very exciting past week here at Garden Crossings. So we've had one of our biggest events that we have ever hosted in the greenhouse, and it's actually an event that's very dear and near to our heart. Our son Carter got married this past weekend, and we totally transitioned the garden center into an absolutely stunning wedding venue. But before all of that happened, there was a lot of preparation that had to be done. And one of the things that we were kind of doing is watching the weather. What was the weather going to be like? Were we going to get our first frost, or were we going to be able to stay warm enough that all the annuals were going to continue to look well? Well, as things happen, and you always, want the best, but sometimes some little, curveballs get thrown your way. And we did get our first frost right before the wedding. So we had to get out into the landscape and change a few things out. We had to switch out around our sign. It was loaded with sun patiens, and whenever we get cold and that first frost, sun patiens, they're always the first plants to go. So we had to get those all ripped out, had to get that sign all replanted up. We did so with pansies, which are more of a cold tolerant annual. That way, as the guests were arriving, it was going to look beautiful. So today we're going to take a walk through the gardens, and we're going to look at some of the frost damage that has occurred, as well as some of the annuals that were able to handle that first frost. Also, I'm going to give you just a few highlights through pictures of our special event, that wedding that took place, to let you just see a little behind the scenes of what the greenhouse looked like with that great transformation. So let's go ahead and take a walk through the gardens. So about 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, we had anticipated needing to change up the front of the garden center. It was all summery looking, and it needed a fall refresh. And we wanted to put a lot of mum color in here, again, preparing not only for our fall season, but preparing for the wedding as well. And when you're growing mums, it's hard to know, just exactly when they're going to bloom. So there's early season mums, late season mums, and then those in the middle. So we kind of went for more that late season mum, just trying to gauge, when they were going to be in their prime and in the best color around the wedding. And I think we nailed it. These mums, we were getting nervous because they were putting on a lot of color just really quickly, but they stayed absolutely perfect and were that perfect splash of color right when we needed them to. And there'll probably be another good week, maybe 2, that they're going to look really nice like this. It will depend, though, if we get some more cold nights. Usually with a garden mum, when that frost sits on the blooms, that's what kind of starts to turn them brown and getting them looking just a little bit tired for the season. The aqua pots filled out really nice and look beautiful. And we were holding on as long as we could with these crescent self-watering hanging baskets, just hoping and praying that they were not going to get hit by the frost. And being that they're under the canopy here of the entrance to the garden center, that gives them a little bit of protection, so that they did just what we were hoping they would do, and that was continue to look nice through the wedding weekend. So what plants do we have in these hanging baskets? We have the Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, one of our favorite Supertunias. I love the new coloration. We also have the Mini Vista Yellow Supertunias, and those two, they did fantastic. And then up there at the top, there's some sweet potato vine that's mixed in with these, and this is a jet black sweet potato vine, and that too just really added to the look. Now that the wedding's done, though, these can come down because they are starting to get just a little bit ratty looking. If you look close, you can see there's some plants that have died, and actually when we go to the back side of them, the side that's not getting as much sun, they do look a little bit more tired and are ready to be brought down for the season. As I mentioned, these are in our weekender hanging baskets. The weekender hanging baskets have a water reservoir in them, so we have to refill them about every 3 days or so, and they'll just continue to feed off that water, off of that water that is in those water reservoirs. So that is what has kept them looking so great this year. We were fortunate enough to not have budworm. Last year the budworm were absolutely awful around Labor Day. So these had to get removed much earlier. So we're just thankful that they held on and are looking terrific. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the plants that did sustain some damage due to the frost, and then also take a look at those that are still holding on and looking fantastic. Before we go and take a look at those plants that aren't looking so swell, I did want to show you the after planting of the pansies and also the Snow Princess Lobularia. This just turned out really fantastic. Now these pansies should continue to do well through the winter because they're a cold tolerant annual, and then also it'll be interesting for us to see just how well they come back in the spring. So I'm hoping they do well over the winter and come back looking just as beautiful as what they do here right now in the landscape. Wow, this is a sure tell sign that the frost has hit these sun patients. You can see there's hardly any flowers remaining. The foliage is all black and they just look kind of mushy, which that's kind of what happens when the frost hits. So this garden here is definitely taken the worst toll that I've seen as far as damage from frost. We'll have some other sun patients we'll show you that aren't quite as bad, but these here are definitely done for the season. One thing you notice though is those begonias kind of in the backdrop there, and they're still doing pretty good. They're holding on and still showing a lot of color. Begonias are just a little bit more cold tolerant, obviously, than what the sun patients are. One thing though that wasn't fazed by that cold was these Daisy May leucanthemums. Oh, these things have just gone bonkers this year with blooming. They are a reblooming daisy, but I have never ever seen this many blooms this late in the season. So this is just wonderful. And part of it, of course, is because we've had such a fantastic growing season this year that the perennials have just really outdid themselves with rebloom and then a rebloom again. We even noticed that a little bit with the hydrangeas. Like here's some incredible hydrangeas. They're done, but we look up there, there's one little lonely bloom that it's kind of a late bloomer. And that's typically nothing that we ever see here on the incredible hydrangeas, is that secondary rebloom. Now, for those of you who were wondering, in the last video I got a lot of questions when to trim the hydrangeas. Your smooth or your arborescent hydrangeas, such as Incredibles or Annabelles or the Invincible series, these all can be trimmed back now here that it's fall, or you can trim them in the spring. These bloom off a new growth, so you don't need to worry about trimming any buds off. There are no buds being formed right now for next season's blooms. The petunias, you can tell they are just a little bit more cold tolerant than those sun patients because they still are going fairly strong. This is the bubblegum petunia and looking fantastic. Tough stuff hydrangea, this would be one you do not trim. Your big leaf hydrangeas, your macrophylla or your mountain hydrangeas, you do not trim those in the fall or in the spring. They already have their buds set for next season's flowers. This is something I want to show you though, because we've had such a long warm season. Look at the beautiful foliage color on these tough stuff hydrangeas. Usually we'll never see these purple shades because it just gets too cold too fast, but this is just gorgeous. So those of you who maybe are in a zone 7, this is something I would imagine you would be seeing typically in your zone, but for us in Michigan, a zone 5B, 6A, we don't get these beautiful fall color on our mountain hydrangeas typically in a normal season. Continuing along, more begonias looking good, some more petunias, and those daisies still just looking fantastic. So the biggest plants that were hit by the frost were coleus and sun patiens. Here's another coleus where you can see some brown on it. Those are going to be the most tender annuals, the ones that are going to first be affected by the frost and the cold temperatures. So we still will have hopefully a little bit more color, you know, coming from the petunias. So I'm going to think the gardeners will probably pull them out before they are, you know, naturally done for the season because of the cold temperatures. So it's always nice when you have the decision to get rid of your annuals because you're ready for it, but instead of, you know, the frost making that decision for you because it got cold. So still some beautiful color remaining, but definitely seasons are changing and lots of beautiful fall color coming. And that cold frost, it gave us permission. It gave us permission to go ahead and get rid of those annuals. And if you still have garden mums in your area that are available to be planted, it's a great time to get those garden mums planted as well. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this weekend's festivities and give you a little preview of what went on in the garden center.